Welcome to the world of probiotic foods. This is Cultured Food Life with your host, Donna Schwenk.
Welcome, everybody, to the show today. I am Donna, and I am grateful that you're spending a few minutes of your day today with me to learn a couple things that maybe you didn't know about. And I'm always excited to share the things that I have learned. And today's show is about pets. And I have two dogs, a Yorkie and a Shih Tzu. And I had two other dogs that were actually Yorkies and Shih Tzus too, that lived to be about 19 years old. And they were the first ones I ever tried cultured foods on. And both of them lived to be about 19, which is a long time for both of those dogs. And they were really something. They loved kefir and they loved cultured foods in general. They drank a lot of different types of cultured foods all the time. So today I want to share with you all the things that I have learned from the people who have shared with me how much especially kefir has helped their pets. And there's many different types of pets that it's helped. And it's really surprised me because I saw it in my own dogs, but I never expected to have the response that I did or the different animals that would be helped by this wonderful food that I love called kefir. And if you're not familiar with kefir is a fermented milk drink. It can be non-dairy, it can be regular dairy. It's loaded with 50 plus good bacteria, and it's a powerhouse drink. And what it does inside the body is, I wish I could get in there and really see what's happening, but it is a miraculous thing in my own life and in the thousands of people that I've helped. But not only that, in animals too. And I actually think that animals and children get better faster than adults when you start ingesting kefir and cultured foods. I have seen so many crazy, miraculous things that it really has blown my mind and has kept me going in my research and in my understanding of all that this food can do. So I want to tell you, I want to read you some of these stories because I think they're best. A lot of these things are best explained when people tell the stories themselves. And for my own dogs, when I used kefir, I've seen it help with kidney stones. I've seen it help with energy, with allergies, with general any kind of sickness they've had. If it's been, if they've had diarrhea or any kind of, like they're throwing up or anything like that, kefir fixes it within a day. At least it has for me. And but I've seen that in so many other people's lives. So I want to share one of my first stories. I want to share, and a lot of these stories are going to be on my website. And I'm trying to link these podcasts with the articles I write, so you can have the option to read things or to listen. And it's a little bit different content in some of them, but most of it's similar. But I'd like to link them so that you can have more options. So if you are listening to this, you can head over to my website and type in this title, and it should come up in the article too, so you can see pictures and things like that. So it will just help you in general. Now, the first story, she was a bioenergetic health practitioner, and this is what she said. She said, when reading a link on your website about testimonials and the benefits of kefir, I found several stories concerning pets and how a dog had come close to death with tumors and was returned to health upon taking kefir. About that time, my 14-year-old kitty had been sick with blood in her stools, diarrhea, and then the massive bloating in her stomach began. Her stomach swelled to the size of a grapefruit, and she could hardly walk across the floor. And getting off the floor was painful for her, and I suspected the worst. Since I had a copy of her video, I decided to give the store-bought kefir a try until I could get kefir grains and begin making my own. Within 2 weeks of taking just the store-bought kefir, my kitty's belly began to diminish in size noticeably, but her ability to get around the house and to begin jumping back on the bed is what really amazed me. She loved the plain kefir and waited for it twice a day. After I was able to make my own homemade kefir, and about 4 weeks from the initial intake of kefir, her belly is completely back to normal. She's running outside. She goes after the mice again, and she is loving life. Every morning she comes up while I'm still in bed, sits on my chest as if to say, where is my morning dose? As for my son's dog who is living with me, we noticed a mass of cells beginning to appear on his skin, breaking through the fur on his hindquarters. I did ask the vet on that one, thinking it might be cancerous, and she confirmed that it was, and I began feeding him kefir as well. After about 3 weeks, we noticed the red abnormal cells were now turning white and scaly and falling off. The size of his mass diminished from the size of a quarter to now the size of a pink fingernail, but his hair is growing back over the site, and I am sure his immune system has also beat those bad cells. I am switching off and on with different flavors of the second fermented kefir with my dog. If you're not familiar with second fermented kefir, that's after you make your first batch and then you add a little lemon peel to it and let it sit for a couple hours and it flavors it. So I'm switching off with 2 different flavors of the second fermented kefir with the dog, but the cat loves the plain first fermented kefir. Thank you for saving my cat's life and possibly a huge vet bill with my son's dog. Sincerely, Deb Koali. One of the big things that I have seen with my own dogs that kefir has helped tremendously with is any kind of urinary tract infection or kidney stones, anything involving that area or that region of the body. Because when we first moved to California about a year and a half ago, my dog started to, I noticed he had blood in his urine. And I didn't know what was wrong. And then he acted like he was in a lot of pain. And I instantly gave him kefir that when I noticed it. And I was going to try to find a vet. But within a day, it stopped. And he stopped exhibiting all the pain symptoms that he had. And it was really interesting because it came back. I stopped giving him kefir for a little bit. And then it came back. But I think it was due to the water in our house. We didn't know we had a water softener. We had just moved into a house. When we first moved in here, I think we had been giving him the water from the faucet that was softened, so it had a lot of salt in it, and I think that had been really bothering him. So then, fast forward a few weeks later, and we started getting bottled water that we had delivered to our home from his mountain spring water, and I think that might have caused some of his problems. But both times when I noticed that he was having problems, I just gave him kefir every day. And sometimes I even put it in a syringe just to do it fast. Because usually I'll just put a little dish down and they'll drink it. And sometimes he didn't want to eat anything or drink anything, so I put a little syringe and gave it to him in his mouth. And within a day, it would fix it. It's just so amazing to me. And I've heard that time and time again from people. And here it was a letter that I got from a woman named Brooke. And this is her story. My dog had urinary tract infections since puppyhood, and we could never clear them up with antibiotics prescribed by the vet. After a year of dealing with incontinence issues from the infections, I decided to give her kefir with each meal. And she hasn't had a UTI since. Thank you very much, Brooke. Now, there was another article that Midwest Organic and Sustainable Services posted on an article on how farmers and veterinarians are feeding calves and cows kefir. I thought this was really interesting. The article talked about a couple named Mervine and Diane who had a family farm and started drinking kefir. And after 10 years of doing so, they decided to try it on their new calves. Mervyn said, "I think kefir is the best kept secret out there. Several other farmers have backed him up on this statement. We used to use a lot of calves to sickness," said one farmer, "and we haven't lost a calf in a few years since we've been feeding them all kefir." Dr. Guy Jordarsky, staff veterinarian at Organic Valley, added that he has seen a lot of success with calves being fed kefir. "I especially like to recommend kefir to farmers just getting into organic because this is where we see a lot of trouble with calves." One of the farmers present chimed in with his story of being in the first year of organic production and really struggling with keeping 2-week to 2-month-old calves alive. "I started feeding them kefir, and now my 3-month calves are strong, weighing twice what they did at that age before. And kefir has really been a miracle for my calves." It was really interesting when I first started making kefir, and it was, I think, 17 years ago. I used to go get, I love raw milk. So I used to go to my farmer and get raw milk. And he told me this story about a girl who lived next door to a farmer who had a cow, and the cow was kind of sickly, and the little girl loved the cow. She was about 13, I think, 12 or 13. And she would go out every day and she'd pat the cow, and they decided they were going to get rid of the cow because he was so sickly. And so the girl asked if she could have the cow instead of them getting rid of him. And so they gave her the cow, and she started giving them kefir. And within a month, I don't even think it was a month, I think it was a few weeks, the cow completely turned around and was vibrant and happy and healthy, and the farmer couldn't believe it. And all the girl had really done was love the cow and give him some kefir, and it really changed his life. And that was in the very early days that I had heard that story about kefir. And I had been giving it to my own dogs with much success. And then I decided to start what I call a Lives Touched page. And I wanted people to be able to share their stories and send them in to me. And then I would put them on this page so that other people could read how kefir was not only helping them, but helping their pets too. And I started to get a lot. And one day I got one from a lady named Donna. And it's a very heartwarming story. And I'm going to read her story, but she sent me a couple letters, and it really warmed my heart to see how much, not only does kefir help us as humans, but helps our furry friends. And I've seen it help parrots and horses and other birds and hamsters and hedgehogs. And I've got some of these stories on my Lives Touch page, which is just on my website at culturedfoodlife.com if you want to head on over there. And you'll see a little button in the bar and just click Lives Touched. But this one in particular really warmed my heart, and I want to read it to you. And this is Dawn in her own words. Dear Donna, I have got to tell you, my husband, with all loving intentions, brought home 2 puppies. They were 3 and 1.5 weeks old, and they were abandoned by a homeless man. I went into a frenzy of worry because I knew how important mommy's milk is to them. And as quickly as my 2 kids, 6 and 8, became attached to these precious little hearts, I realized something wasn't right. The next day, I took my husband to the side and told him what I was seeing. Honey, when I was a little girl, I held in my arms more than one puppy who died from parvo, and I think these guys have it too. After being quoted $1,500 to $3,000 per puppy with a 10% survival rate from the vet, we had some serious family decisions to make. We talked to my little girl, she's the older one, about what was going on and what decision we had to make. And she wanted to hold them tight to the very end. I understood that, for I was a little girl once too. Next to my son, luckily, that earlier frenzy I had about the mother's milk led me to giving him kefir made from goat's milk, because that's what I had. So we kept up strong with the kefir, hoping the probiotics would fight the parvo and supply them with the nourishment they needed. We noticed after they ate that they would moan with pain. Both the kids said that at the same time. It sounds just like Daddy when his stomach hurts. So we instantly started adding in a little bit of aloe vera gel, and I later found out that parvo deteriorates the stomach lining. So this was the right call to do. We also gave them some coconut juice, which is coconut water with lime for dehydration. This went on for days, and then I added in some elderberry for immune boosting and just kept at it, praying that the kefir would lead the healing team. We got so close to losing the one that we thought for sure wasn't going to make it that night. And you know what? He did. They both did. They got better, and they did it. And thank you, Donna. Thank you, God, for Donna and for stepping out when she discovered kefir. Today, the pups are 9 weeks old and running through my house. God bless. Don. And we have another story that I love to tell, and it's about Christian, the dog. I call this blog Christian, the dog that Kefir saved. And it was one of my really good friend's dogs, and he had gotten very, very sick. I think it was this was many years ago. This was the very beginning when I first found Kefir. And she was one of the first people that I talked to about or told to try for her dog. And Christian the dog had really bloody stools and severe vomiting. And they took him to the vet and ran tests, but they couldn't find anything. And they put him on 3 medications that sort of helped, but he had to have a strict diet of chicken and rice. And if they deviated from that diet at all, the bloody stools and the vomiting would return. And this went on for 7 months. And in September, Dion came to one of my classes and got kefir grains and started making kefir smoothies for her family. And since she thought it was good for her family, that it might help her dog. So she mixed some kefir in his food. And because she had run out of medication at the time, she had mixed some of this in his food. And she was afraid with 3 days of no medication, he was going to get really sick again. But he was having kefir every day. And the bloody stools and stomach upsets stopped, even without the medication. So now Christian has a cup of kefir every day, and he can eat anything. He's as happy as he can be, and many times he will stand right in front of the blender when she's making kefir smoothies, and he follows her around begging her for more. And she told me how awful it was when he was sick, because it was just explosive diarrhea that would go everywhere, and he was just miserable. And never did she think that just a cup of kefir every day would change him so dramatically, but it did. And I have seen this again and again, and it's really simple to give them kefir. Depending on how much they weigh, I just give my dogs maybe 1/8 of a cup of kefir, and you can mix it into their food. You can give it to them plain. My dogs like it plain. My daughter has a bigger dog that's probably 50 pounds, and she gives him a cup of kefir in his dry food, mixes it all together. He eats that way. Some dogs are picky. So we even have a recipe on our website called a pumpkin smoothie. Pumpkin's really good for dogs. And it's a whole recipe that we make. And you can check it out, Culture Food Life, under Probiotic Pets. And the dogs absolutely love it. It's delicious. It's something that they can have by itself, or you can mix into their food. You can even mix it into their wet food. It just depends. I try it. What I did was I would put a little bit on my finger and then let the dogs lick it so they knew what it was. And then they would eat it, and then they would finish the bowl. That's how I kind of started with them. But it depends on how picky the dogs are. I think you can change it up, do however you want. You can add it by itself, or you can, mix it into their food, or make this smoothie. We also have something on our website called Kombucha Treats for dogs. And we take the SCOBY and we dehydrate them, and we put some different seasonings and things on them, and the dogs can eat them as dog treats. Some dogs really love them. Some dogs don't care for them, but it just depends on how picky your dog is. And we have a couple of those things. The other thing that I wanted to tell you about is that whenever your dogs are getting older, and they have more and more dogs that are, kept inside, tend to eat human food. And when you do that, it is very hard on their kidneys. And one thing I have seen, one lady wrote us in, and I don't know if you listened to my last podcast on kidneys and kefir, and her dog, I talked about him on the last podcast about how her dog was at stage 4 kidney failure and how kefir brought him back. And they basically sent her home and said, there's nothing we can do. No dogs come out of stage 4 kidney failure. And in desperation, she started giving him kefir, and lo and behold, he turned completely around and is healthy and happy, and flabbergasted the vet. Couldn't believe it. And I just hope that not only will this food get around the community of people who've got wonderful pets and help them to be healthy and happy, but I hope that it reaches other people too, like the veterinarians, like I talked about, that were helping the calves. But I hope that vets start to realize this. And the only way they're going to know that is if people start doing it. So that's one of the reasons why I do these podcasts, because if you have a story to tell your vet, maybe they'll all catch on. Maybe they'll start to pay attention and realize that this food can even work better than medicine, and can help heal these furry friends that we love so much. Kefir is a miraculous food. It has 50 plus good bacteria in it, probiotics, and it seems to just work in ways that I couldn't have ever imagined on myself and on my animals too. And it's thrilling to me that there's something out there that will not only help us, but help our pets too. So if you'd like, head on over to my website, check out the other stories. We've got Yorkies and a hedgehog and hamsters, and it's really cute stories that people have sent in. And if you have a story, I would love to hear it. I think the more that people tell their stories, the more that people share their stories, the more we can help one another. Because we're kind of all in this together, helping each other. And when you get better, when your pets get better and you share it, then it goes out and helps so many others. And that's exactly how I started doing all of this, was by helping myself get better, helping my family get better, then my friends got better, and lo and behold, their animals got better too. So have a wonderful week. Give a hug to your furry friends, and maybe pick up some kefir or learn to make it. I can teach you to make it. It takes 24 hours. It's just so easy to make. It's a no-brainer. You just stick it in a jar, sit on your counter for 24 hours, the next day you got kefir. So if you'd like to learn how to do that, head on over to my site at culturedfoodlife.com or go pick some up at the store. Homemade's usually stronger, but it's a great place to start too when you just want to try it out. You guys have a wonderful week, and I appreciate you so much for listening.